Well, kids, it's that time again. Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. JLynn here, and if you could just do a little shout out to a gentleman by the name of Stephen Ruxton, because he was going hard to the hoop to have me get you on the show. If you wouldn't mind.
Hey, Stephen Rexton, thank you for asking me to be on the show.
And thank you for being here. So how are things? You're busy by the looks of things. I've been following your socials and stuff, and things seem to be going quite well.
Yes, they are. Well, I'm constantly putting out new content, and we have been doing a lot of recording. There are some things in the works, and we're planning to release some of our recordings that we've done, which encompasses both covers and originals. So we're working on a plan for that currently at the time.
So it's interesting because, and I want to try to not ask you something you've been asked a million times before about your instrument and that type of thing. Um, but where did you get the idea to? I'm going to assume you started out as a violin player and you were classically trained, and then at some point in time there was this epiphany where you went, okay, you know what, this could be a very cool thing. I'm going to go down this path. Um,
Absolutely.
what was that transition, and I guess how long ago did that take place?
So yes, I am classically trained. I started at 6.5, did all the whole rigmarole of, Suzuki and all the classical training, until I got to college, at which point um, I was asked to go on a tour with this all-girl band, which was drums, piano and synth, electric cello and electric violin. And it was, even though I had electric violin, this was my first time playing on a 5 string and utilizing analog effects pedals for the first time. So it was my first time playing with distortion, and I was just completely hooked. And since then, I just totally went to that direction. And sorry, bye classical. Not that I don't play classical anymore, but I kind of just fell in love with rock music and metal music, and ever since I've been opening my horizons and getting new inspiration from artists that have been around for decades. But for me, as a starting out as a classical player, just like within the past year, I think I started covering Randy Rhoads, which I know of Randy, but like really delving into his music and just covering things note for note, because it lends itself really nicely actually to the violin. He was very, very melodic. And so, yeah, I discovered effects pedals, and now I don't know if you can see it here.
I
I
can,
have
yep.
I am now a fractal audio artist because I stepped away from analog pedals and I went to digital, because I have everything that I need in my amp modeler and my effects processor, and I love fractal and the sounds that I can get out of it. And well, we laugh a little bit because well, my producer Patrick calls it Beauty and the Beast. So yeah. So shout out to Fractal Audio. They're the best.
Well, and so you mentioned the classical angle, and I mean I'm a drummer. I grew up liking rock. I mean Scorpions and Kiss and all that, and I've had some friends that grew up liking jazz, and there's always been the battle of rock guys aren't real musicians, and I know in the classical world, guitar players that don't read aren't considered real players or whatever. As somebody that obviously started out classical and now is in more rock, you made that you read, but you made that transition. Um, what I guess what's your pro, your con, your druther? Do you chart everything when you're putting this together, or are you just going by heart, or how you doing it?
So when I learn solos and things like that, it helps me actually learning it as I'm charting it. I transcribe note for note. It's both a blessing and can sometimes be a curse that I have perfect pitch. So when I hear things, I can write it down. And then also I like that because if I come back to it later and let's say I don't have it note for note in my brain and I just kind of remember it, I can just glance at my sheet music and then pick it up in like 2 seconds. So it's nice to that actually from my classical training has been like one of the biggest blessings too, is that I grew up and I actually learned in college how to do ear training and transcribing and all that stuff. I went to USC, fight on. Now they have a popular music program there, which is pretty awesome, but they didn't have that when I was there. So I was going into the orchestral world and I was like, nope. I took 2 auditions and I was like, I don't even want to do this. So I ended up I don't know if you saw or if you've heard of it. before, but we did a cover of Toxicity by System of a Down. And
Yep.
I don't know how long ago that was now. I was blonde back then. But it went viral on the internet. And ever since then, I was like, this is my thing. Like, this is what I'm going towards. And that's how I created the Violution.
And so you've been doing that for a while, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
And so in terms of, your professional life, I mean, you put those videos out there and, to sound like a knucklehead guy musician, you're going, okay, well, here's this girl who is playing this instrument. And almost when I first saw the videos, it almost doesn't appear real, but when you step back and go like, it's a real instrument, it sounds killer. There's no question you can play. There's no question whatsoever. Do you find those videos when you were putting them out, were you getting approached by people to, take part in their projects and play on their recordings and that type of thing?
I have been approached by a few. Actually, I'll be performing this Friday as a guest with Jack Russell's Great White, and that'll be here in Las Vegas. So that's one of the things that happened as a result of doing these videos. And I do get approached by some other artists as well, and I get great shout outs. Like on TikTok, Metallica saw my video and reposted it on their page. Within Temptation, I did a cover of theirs. I hadn't even heard of them before, but they came out with this new song and I absolutely loved it. And they reposted it too and named me, and then I got like quite a few followers as a result of them doing that. I can't. There's a few other artists that have done it as well. But studio sessions, definitely. People have seen the videos and then they ask me to either lay something down on their track as a solo or to play, just get some violin in there.
And before we go any further, so you're in Vegas.
Yes, Las Vegas.
Are we
Currently,
cheering for
I was in LA for quite a long time, and then I came out here because there's a great entertainment scene here as well.
Actually, I want to tackle that in a second, but you cheering for the Golden Knights?
Yes. I mean, well, to be honest, I'm not a huge sports buff because I'm always like focused on music, but I do know that the city has rallied around the Knights like crazy. And they built T-Mobile Stadium, T-Mobile Arena, and then they built Allegiant Stadium for the Raiders. So it's like now we've become like this sports city as well as entertainment, which is really great. Gives people more of a reason to come down here.
And those hockey games are an event. I mean, I haven't had the pleasure to being at one yet, but I mean, they're an event, and that's what you have to do to, I guess, there's not there might be some Canadian transplants, but you got to get some people that have never been interested in something out, and that's how you do it, by putting on a show, right?
Definitely. Yeah. And I used to actually get mad because whenever I had to park at for Aerosmith to go and perform with Aerosmith, the T-Mobile Arena would have those Knights games. So every time that I needed to park was around the same time that people were parking for the Knights, and I was like, the spots are gone, and I had to go all the way up. But anyway.
Well, that reminds me when I'm playing. When I'm playing here locally, and you'll go over to load in, and there'll be somebody you've never. It's almost like going to church, where you've had to go to church every day of your life, and then Christmas and Easter, somebody sitting in your seat that you don't know who they are, and they're in your parking spot, right? Yeah. It's very similar. So just before we wrap for the first segment, so you said you were in LA, so you're Southern California gal.
Yeah, I was born in San Diego. Great place to grow up. Really beautiful, like weather all the time. Had a great upbringing, and then went to USC. About 2.5 hours from, my home base. So I felt like I was far enough from home, but if I wanted to, I could go back. And then I stayed in LA for about, I think, 11 years. I went to USC for too many of them. 8 years. I got my bachelor's, master's, and then a grad certificate in Baroque music because I delved into something else, which afforded me a lot of travel around South America. Which was great. We did something with John Malkovich. Music Angelica was the Baroque orchestra that I played with. And actually that helped me too, because all these different ways of learning how to play violin in a different way, they all gave me different techniques and allowed me to do what I do today. Because most violin players, when they're learning classically, you're supposed to vibrate every note like consistently. And that was never a thing for me. And then when you play Baroque violin, you're supposed to have no vibrato and only use it as an ornament here and there, like to be expressive. And so I find when I play violin and rock music, especially when I'm doing stuff with the effects, that I need to not use too much vibrato on certain things where I'm stacking. Otherwise, it starts to get a little crazy. So, yeah, I found some new techniques that I play on my violin as a result of doing things in a different way. So,
Well, we're going to take a break and pay some bills here. We're a big business podcast, but we're also got to, we got to take care of some stuff. So we're going to be back with JLynn on the flip side after this. Well, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Rimshots with Sean, brought to you by Barstools and Bandtalk. I will tell you, JLynn, in the last, I don't know, 2 or 3 months, I've had a habit of getting picked up by blabbermouth. So I don't know what's going to happen here. You know how you guaranteed you're picked up on blabbermouth? You start talking about backing tracks, and as soon as you start talking about backing tracks, you're in there. So I saw some of your video that you posted. You were doing it in your studio. Obviously, you're playing the backing tracks.
yes.
How much, I guess, are you playing live versus playing in the studio? I mean, obviously everything was shut down there for a bit, but are things kind of opening back up for you now?
Yeah, so as I'm sure everybody knows, that music and musicians during the pandemic, it was just like a complete shutdown. There were just a few little things maybe happening in Vegas, but yeah, there was that time where just nothing was happening. So since then, I think Vegas was one of the first cities to really like open and allow music to be happening again. Studio sessions, obviously, because if you're in-house and you don't have to go somewhere. Otherwise, if you knew the owner of a studio and you could go there, like that was one of my first gigs out of the pandemic on my birthday, was to go to a studio and lay down some tracks with some other girls in town on on a record for someone. So
that's pretty cool. And I mean, one of the, I guess, themes that we used to talk about, because our podcast started, it was just something we'll do for 5 weeks and we'll be back at it. And here we are 3 years later. But one of the themes was technology. And if you took advantage of technology, i.e. streaming, i.e., remote recording, and you, I guess, kept up on that, when things open back up again, you'd be so much ahead of the game versus some of the people that I guess just kind of were like, they would do nothing. Did you do that? Obviously, you have you built a studio, but did you do a lot of that during the shutdown?
Well, during the shutdown, we went into a lot of recording because we were lucky to have that studio. And actually, that's a track that was released in February, Bad Horsie by Steve Vai. And I remember that I heard the riff when I think I was listening to a couple of Steve Vai tracks. And I was like, wow, that is the coolest, sexiest, heaviest riff. I really want to cover the song. Then after I started learning the song and had like dedicated myself to it, I heard the solo and I was starting to freak out because the solo is like totally out of this world and he's all over the place with his fingers, and it was intimidating to say the least. So, and we've done some, we actually put little cameras in the room, kind of like fly on the wall experience. And we uploaded all of those to our social media platforms, and they're called Studio Shenanigans with the Violution. And we basically showed everybody like how we were recording that song, like all almost like the entire song. You can hear me learning everything, and it was like a literally fly on the wall. Like you're there, you're watching, and sometimes I would remember that it was on. Sometimes I would not, or I didn't care. And there were some intense moments in the studio because my producer and I are very passionate when it comes to certain things. So if he thought something should be played a certain way, or I said, this is this note, and he's like, no, it's this note. And then we're just sitting there in the studio for a while, like grumpy at each other. It was a fun thing. And it actually ended up being really funny. And so we ended up cutting the clips. And so they turned out to these like hilarious little scenes, and we put little emojis on it. Anyway, it's really entertaining. So if you haven't seen it yet, I would say go see some of those. But yes, so during sorry, I took a little tangent there.
That's all right.
During the pandemic, recording was a huge thing. And then actually going into the videos, I feel like came after the pandemic for me, because I dedicated most of the time to working on, the craft and what we could do, trying to keep not only technique up, but just playing in general, because a lot of people were saying that, oh, well, if you don't have a job, you should go get a regular job. But as musicians, it's not it's not your hobby, it's your lifestyle. So you can't just stop what you're doing and go do something else. If you're not completely into what you're doing, then it just kind of shuts off that part of your life, and you keep like you got to stay in it. You can't just veer off somewhere else. And I don't know how some people can do, multiple things if they're really dedicated to their craft. It's just hard for me, like, because when I find myself getting into something else, I lose my focus on learning and playing and all that kind of stuff. But so it was really great, the pandemic, in that way, because it really forced you to just work on yourself and everything, at least if you put your mind to it. So that's what we did. And I actually played a little too hard when I was learning the solo, and I gave myself a little tendinitis. So then I had to take a little time off, which was a bummer. But then got right back in it and was able to finish the track. So Bad Horsie is our track that's available on all the digital platforms and iTunes, if anybody likes to buy it, and Spotify. So, and then, like I said, we're going to be putting out some more music soon.
Well, and you bring up, good, tendinitis. I mean, I got carpal tunnel, and some of it's from, poor technique, obviously, sometimes, and not warming up, and it can be, heartbreaking. But I think with music, and I don't know about the States, up here, we opened, then we shut down, then we opened, then we shut. It just seemed like this push-pull.
Yeah.
And people didn't treat music, I don't think. I mean, it was the thing that was getting people through, but they didn't treat it seriously, because I had a number of people say, it's not a real thing, it's just fun. And, you can enjoy something and have it be work. And it's weird how if you're not sitting in an office in the corner with the rubber tree plant, hating life, it's not work, right?
Well, to me, I light up when I play music. And so I want to be doing that for as much time as I can. So when it comes to doing what you love, find whatever that thing is. If it's not music, and if it's something else, go do that something else. But music, obviously, it lifts everybody's spirits. So even if it is a hobby, great. Do that for yourself and add that little bit to your life. But for people who are really musicians at heart and they've been doing it for a long time, it was really difficult to just not be able to play on stage. And I remember I was trying to do some live things, but it was very strange just playing to a phone or a video camera and pretending that that's your audience, because you don't hear people like clapping, or you don't hear them giving you kind of like, you don't see them, you can't connect with them, you're just staring at this phone. So I guess maybe actors and actresses, because they're used to that, portraying their emotions on screen. But when I did find, as I did it more and more and more and more, it got easier to do that. But I don't want to just be staring at myself all the time. People need to perform live, because you want to transmit that energy in person, because it is an energy. Music has this beautiful way of expressing your emotions and what you feel as you're playing it to your audience. And that's cool. What I feel that people are there to see, and feel. It's really about the feeling.
Push pull. Look, we're going to take one more break. We're going to come back. I hopefully, I've got a bunch of questions. Hopefully we can get them answered here in the next segment, but we'll be back with JLynn after this. Folks, welcome back to Rimshots with Sean. We're here with JLynn. I guess one of the things, so you mentioned Randy Rhoads, you mentioned Steve Vai.
Yes.
Who would some of your influences be?
John Petrucci from Dream Theater.
Oh, yeah.
He is one of the most melodic and beautiful, expressive guitar players, I think, of our time. Really, the first time I heard one of his solos, it was The Spirit Carries On. It just floored me. And I literally stopped, and I had to go to the studio and transcribe note for note to learn it. And it was just almost like a soul opening thing. Just really beautiful music that they make. It's obviously the entire thing. It's not just his solo, it's the whole band. But the way that he forms these melodies that are just soaring and so beautiful, but he's still also so technically proficient, which makes it very challenging to learn too. Mm-hmm. And obviously there's some things that on a guitar don't translate very well to violin, so you got to figure out a way to do it, or figure out how am I going to do that. So I learned The Spirit Carries On, and the other one that I just did not too long ago. What was that called? The one that Mike Portnoy wrote for his father, best best times of my life or something like that. I can't remember the title. But that one really, it's like a 3-minute solo. Like it is full on. Best of times. That's it. Thank you, Patrick.
Hey, it's good. It's good you got people that are helping you out. That's awesome. Because you know I have nobody, so if I mess up, then I'm in trouble. So hopefully I don't mess up. So I mean that's a great influence, and certainly that guy definitely. I saw him live a number of times. Proficient, the whole band proficient. It's just silly.
Yeah.
I almost think it'd be one of the best jobs in the world. Be James LaBrie, where you sing for 37 seconds and walk off the stage for 10 minutes, right?
The instrumental takes over, yeah.
Because you get to give your all. Good Canadian boy too, I might add. But how often do you practice, and how much do you practice?
Well, when I was learning classically, I would do hours and hours every day, especially when I was in college, because you had to play for juries at the end of the year, which was like your, year-end report or whatever. I remember actually practicing for like 8 hours one day, which was too much, because then the next couple days I couldn't get the theme out of my head.
Right.
It was crazy that it just like stuck in there like a earworm. Basically, when I learn a solo, when I'm getting ready for the video, that is my practice. So as I'm writing down the notes, as I'm learning it on my violin, and then even when I'm recording and finding the patches and things like that, that is my actual practice. Unfortunately, musicians these days, we have to do everything ourselves. Because you don't have the liberty to just be a musician. You have to be a social media person. You have to be a video editor, which I found takes up the majority of my time, really, when it comes to these videos, because I want them to be interesting. I'm not going to do just a static thing, which maybe if I'm going live, it works, and then I can kind of move around if I want to, or just stay stagnant there or static. But I like to have a little bit of theatric value in it, in a way, like make it entertaining. So and then I like to utilize sometimes 2 violins. So I'll put Viper and my my Yamaha in there. So yeah, so practicing for me just comes down to when I'm learning things. And it's never the same every day. Sometimes I'll be working on some admin stuff and I don't get to my violin that day. Other times I'll just be sitting on my violin for hours trying to figure out, okay, what's going on in this Megadeth run here?
Yeah.
How far can I make this? And I'm starting it at like half speed, trying to get up to full speed. It's always different, and I don't give myself a how do you call it? Like I don't force myself to adhere to a schedule or anything like that. I find that's counterproductive, actually, because there are things always that are going to come up in your life, and life throws you curveballs all the time. So, yeah.
Great point. Because I mean, you could force things, and when you force things, sometimes it just winds up being bad muscle memory as opposed to good muscle memory, right?
Exactly. You can spend 30 minutes of really good practicing versus 2 hours of not so great. And then, like you said, the muscle memory or really that dedicated focus of that 30 minutes is really going to make you just knock it out of the park.
So your social, and you mentioned social media, which is, I guess, so important to these days, and trying to figure it out. And I'd be interested to get your take. I always joke around on my show. You do something you think is very good. You put it out there, and I don't know, maybe 1,000, 2,000 people see it. And then somebody finds a potato chip that looks like Richard Nixon, and they go viral, and they get 5 million hits, and it's very frustrating, right? It's and there's no real secret. I mean, people, their attention spans are short, and you got to play to that. But what do you consciously try to sit down and say, I got to do something, a program or a campaign, or to get your socials really active to draw your members in, or you just do what you do and hope for the best?
Well, so I was really active on social media almost every day at some point. And it was like I was trying to post every single day, at least I was trying at some point to do a video a day, which became not realistically possible when I was choosing these solos that really take time to practice and to learn. And then because I'm editing and everything, it would take a lot of time to prep that. So I found that also if you really try to push something, or like you think that if I use the right wording and the right hashtags and I'm posting at this time and it's on this platform and then I do this on that platform, when you think about it too much, it doesn't work. It has to be organic and it has to be real. And I remember I posted something, and just really the quality of what your content is the best thing that you want to put out there. Because I remember I had a video of playing Comfortably Numb, the solo live. And there was actually an orchestra that I was playing with and a band. And I knew it was gold. And I was like, this solo is just like, wow. It was just somebody took a cell phone video at the show, and the quality was like, like
Yeah.
of the actual video quality, but the sound was amazing, and just the feeling that you got from hearing the Pink Floyd song, and I was playing it the way that I was playing it, and I was like, okay, so I'm just going to be smart about, like, I wrote something like starting off the week like fire with Pink Floyd Comfortably Numb, and then I did some hashtags and stuff. It ended up getting like over 1 million views on
Nice.
Facebook, like, and it just went viral. Like, I remember I was like, whoa, there it goes, and it was awesome. Back in the day, it was a lot easier to go viral on YouTube than it is nowadays, because
Hmm.
everybody wants you to just pay for your sponsored everything. So it's like almost like they're purposely not allowing you to go organically because they want you to pay for it. I found that when you are consistently on a platform, your audience sees that you're posting all the time, and you don't want to post too much and you don't want to post too little, is what I came down to at the end. You just have to connect with your audience, and you have to give them content that is valuable to them. Like, you don't want to post the same things over and over. You don't want to like rerun your stuff too much. Maybe like a throwback here and there works. But when you start to repost things, people notice that you're reusing your content, so that's not a good idea.
Mailing it in.
um so fresh content. It doesn't even have to be that long, and to mix up the variety of it. Like, sometimes I'll just post a photo of like my violin and be like, yeah, check out this hot thing right here. Or just me casual Saturday, and then a video, but the video is really like I love what I do, which is learning the guitar solos and putting it up. So that's become my thing, is just I'm learning all these guitar solos and translating them onto my electric violin, and people are loving it. And it's interesting because there are a few that are like, that's not a guitar, just freaking play a guitar instead, or like, just no, it's not working. And I'm like, whatever, I'm doing my own thing. Let me do what I
Exactly.
want to do. And if you don't like it, bye.
You gave me a fantastic idea how I can get my socials up, though. I could do a segment of me trying to fix stuff around the house, because anybody that knows me, that would be the best thing they could ever see. It would be disastrous, and I'm only halfway joking. But look, you play with some heavy hitters, and I mean, we could go on all day about that. But if my viewers want to find out more about you, how do they do it? Where are they going to find you?
So, I think my biggest social following right now is on Facebook on my JLynn page. JLynn Violin is the handle. JLYNN Violin, Violin. And then, but YouTube for the Violution. So that handle is TheViolution. They can also find us on TikTok. That's another thing. Was posting on TikTok for a while, and then all of a sudden I posted Master of Puppets. I think it must have been when the Stranger Things was like happening. So I tried to hop on the train of that. That's another thing. Like, if there's trendy things happening, sometimes it works to do something that's like, happening, and you can kind of jump on that wave. But I try not to do that because I don't like trends. I just want to do my own thing. And I find that that is really the thing. Like, just if you love what you do, show the world, and they will dig what you do because you're loving it. So
That's
Yeah.
great advice. And look, I'll vouch for you that you're amazing getting back to people quickly, because when I sent you the email, you were back to me within an hour, and I do appreciate that. And I want to thank you for being on our little old show. I didn't say A once. It's pretty good for a Canadian boy to not do that. So best of luck. I'd like to stay in touch with you, see what you're doing, and we'll do a follow-up maybe down the road. But thank you so much.
Sounds great. Thank you so much.
All right, JLynn. Ciao, kids.